Elizabeth Holmes convinced the most powerful investors on the planet that a single drop of blood could diagnose over 200 diseases, and she built a $9 billion empire on it. The only problem? The machine didn't work. Patients got false cancer diagnoses, and Holmes ended up in federal prison. She was 19 years old when she walked out of Stanford with nothing but one idea and an almost frightening amount of conviction. Holmes dropped out in 2003, telling her parents the tuition money would fund her company instead. That company was Theranos. The device at its center was called the Edison, a small, sleek box she claimed could run hundreds of diagnostic tests from a single finger prick. No needles, no labs, near instant results. It sounded like science fiction, and that was precisely the point. But Holmes understood something most scientists don't. The performance matters as much as the product. She started wearing a black turtleneck every single day, a deliberate, calculated echo of Steve Jobs. She trained her voice lower, flattening it into a slow, authoritative baritone she later admitted was partly constructed. She spoke in the cadence of someone who had already won, and it worked. George Shultz, former U.S. Secretary of State, joined the Theranos board. Rupert Murdoch wrote a personal check for $125 million. Betsy DeVos invested. Retired generals, sitting secretaries, and some of the sharpest financial minds in the country handed Holmes hundreds of millions of dollars. By 2014, she was the world's youngest self-made female billionaire on paper, worth $4.5 billion according to Forbes. Here's what none of them knew. The Edison couldn't actually do what Holmes said it could. Theranos was quietly running most patient samples on conventional Siemens machines anyone could buy. When the Edison did process tests on its own, the results were dangerously unreliable. Real patients received false positive HIV results. Others were handed false cancer diagnoses. People canceled surgeries, started medications, made life-altering decisions, all based on numbers a broken machine invented. This wasn't a startup that stumbled. It was a medical device lying directly to sick people, while Holmes cashed the checks. Rupert Murdoch handed Holmes $125 million without ever seeing the Edison actually work. Would you have invested? Drop your answer in the comments below. Now here's where it gets even darker, because Holmes didn't just fool investors. She fooled the patients too. Then in 2015, the wall cracked. And it started with a phone call John Carreyrou made to a Theranos insider. Carreyrou was a Wall Street Journal reporter who'd received a tip that the Edison wasn't performing the way Holmes claimed. He began working his sources quietly. Holmes's response wasn't to fix the machine. It was to unleash Theranos's legal team on anyone who talked, threaten former employees with lawsuits, and personally call the journal's editors to kill the story before it ran. It almost worked, but one person wouldn't stay quiet. Tyler Shultz was a young Theranos employee and the grandson of George Shultz, the former Secretary of State sitting on Holmes's own board. He had watched the Edison fail internal quality checks firsthand. He knew what the numbers actually meant for real patients, and he made a decision that cost him his family relationship. He became a whistleblower. He talked to Carreyrou anyway. When the Journal published its investigation in October 2015, the story didn't just embarrass Holmes, it triggered a federal response. The FDA raided Theranos labs and discovered something that made the fraud concrete. The Edison had been voiding its own quality control checks. The machine knew it was failing. It flagged the errors internally and ran the tests anyway. The company dissolved. Holmes was indicted on federal wire fraud charges. In January 2022, a jury convicted her. She reported to federal prison in May 2023. Here's the detail that stays with you. Holmes had generals, secretaries of state, and the sharpest money in Silicon Valley completely fooled. The person who finally brought her down was a 20-something who decided that lying to sick people was a line he wouldn't cross. Not for his career, not even for his grandfather. Audacity has a ceiling. Sick patients are exactly where it hits it. Subscribe for more stories like this, and watch the next one on screen now.